So we're sitting back. These doors open up, and there's 5 or 6 of us, and we're in hockey gear from our pants down, took our skate blades out, gloves, stick, naked, shirtless. And we walk, and these doors open up, and the smoke goes, and we walk down these glass stairs in skates, and everybody's going wild, and we're like, it's a live TV set. I'm kind of in shape and kind of not in shape. I'm walking down. The guys are doing push-ups before. We got our makeup done. I'm going, what is this? What did I sign up for?
Booyah, and it's time for the Game Sports Show. It is your host, David McCaig Jr. This is episode 2 of the Game Sports Show podcast, powered by the Game Entertainment and Media, sponsored by the Sport Displays and Flawless Roofing. Now, before I even get into the agenda and the electrifying content that the show is going to feature for full enjoyment of your ears, your viewing, whatever way you're viewing, which, by the way, you should make sure that you subscribe, like, and follow all the platforms on the Game Sports Show, in particular the TGM Network YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. But speaking of the sponsors of the Game Sports Show podcast, Flawless Roofing, and you may see this sweater with this very nice logo that I'm wearing. You may see the calendar right behind me. Flawless Roofing, what is it, may you ask? Well, it's right in the title. It is a roofing company, and it is flawless, okay? And it's a roofing company that handles both residential rooftops and commercial rooftops, okay? Over 30 years of experience. And you got to protect your investments, right? May as well start it and protect those investments from right from the top. Now, the Sport Displays as well, they have a fantastic product called the Jersey Mount. Now, if you have a jersey, a signed jersey, a shirt, anything that you want to display, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 20 of them in your man cave, in your garage, your bedroom, maybe the studio recording office, whatever it may be, the Sport Displays and Jersey Mount has you covered. Very affordable product, very simple to install. You can use double-sided tape. You can screw it into the wall, and it's interchangeable just by a click, click, and I like to say click, click, boom, but how about click, click, viewing enjoyment? Let's go with that. Now, with the Sport Displays, they're actually going to be in Toronto, in the Toronto Atrium on February the 9th, doing the Dragon's Den Market. Yes, you could have seen the Sport Displays on a previous episode of Dragon's Den, but they will be featured on February the 9th in between the hours of 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. in the Toronto Atrium. That's a CBC Toronto Atrium that you can check out. The Sport Displays will be featured there. Now, getting to the agenda of tonight's second episode of the Game Sports Show with yours truly, David McCaig, the Game Sports Show podcast powered by the Game Entertainment and Media, the TGM Network YouTube channel, and all podcast platforms. We're going to get into some hockey talk right off the hop with yours truly here, getting into some news in hockey. Then the second segment of the show is going to get into a nice special guest interview. Yes, everyone's going to be like, well, Dave, every time I listen to the Game Sports Show podcast, that's your special edition upload. Listen, the Game Sports Show podcast is going to have a lot of content all over the place, and this is a very exciting interview that we have for this edition this week, and it's with Bronson Kovacs, yes, the owner of Zoli Kleaners, and also he played professional hockey over in Europe. We're going to talk hockey. Him and I played against each other. You know, we've had more against each other than we've played with each other. I can't even recall us being teammates. So all of it's been rivalry between him and I. But he's going to share some of his stories in the quest of his business, but as well in the world of sports. And then we're going to have my final thoughts to conclude the show. And that's going to be fully NFL invaded in those pieces of final thoughts. Now, I want to jump right into talking about in the National Hockey League. I want to talk about firstly saying a shout out to the Hall family. Bobby Hall passed away at the age of 84 years of age. You could check out a fantastic article on NHL.com, and Brett Hall had an amazing post on his social medias. Very heartfelt. If you really want to check it out, legend of the game, obviously a legend in Chicago for the Blackhawks. Bobby Hall, may he rest in peace. I also want to talk about, besides moving on to the content side of things, a trade that happened in the National Hockey League. We're going to be talking about a lot of trades. And if you check out last week's episode, you'll see that I talked about how Vancouver is going to be selling. And it was purely Dave against the Vancouver Canucks in that episode. I was all over the Vancouver Canucks, calling out Jim Rutherford, saying a bunch of words that came to mind that he wasn't a successful GM and that truly he is. He's won a couple cups, but I mean, a successful person to operate the Vancouver Canucks, if he is the right person at the helm now because of what they did to Bruce Boudreau, and overall what they did do to Bruce was very unprofessional and awful. But we're not talking Bruce Boudreau here. We're talking that the Vancouver Canucks are going to be a seller. And last week, I'm going to open it the same this week with Vancouver. Say, yep, that team is a seller. They traded Bo Horvat over to the New York Islanders. And I'm not going to dissect trades because things can happen right beyond this recording. But what I am going to be able to dissect is this move for the New York Islanders. They make a move for Anthony Beauvillier, Aturatu, and a first-round pick going over to Vancouver. You know Vancouver is going to be trying to build up those picks. They want Connor Bedard. And the thing is, the New York Islanders, at this time I'm recording on the outside looking in, they are a team that was a couple years removed from being in the conference finals. Okay, this is a team that lost the Stanley Cup champion, eventual Stanley Cup champion, Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're no stranger to playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. The New York Islanders have a good team put together, and Bo Horvat adding to fit in that top six, if not the top line, is going to be very good for the New York Islanders. The Islanders did make a good move here, and they gave up someone who was supposed to be a first-round pick, but dropped in the second round because of performance, injuries, all the fun stuff there. He's going to have an opportunity now to really spread his wings in Vancouver. I think this is overall a good trade, but I think the Islanders got the better of Vancouver here if they make the playoffs and re-sign Bo Horvat. If they don't make the playoffs and that first round pick there's some contingencies in that pick, but whatever it may be, if they're not a playoff team when that pick is inside the draft, Vancouver might move up in the lottery, have another pick that's maybe a lottery pick. Who knows what's going to happen? But overall, Bo Horvat going to the New York Islanders, and the Vancouver Canucks are not going to be done. They're going to be trading now Brock Besser. I guarantee you, I'm just going to say this now. Brock Besser, Luke Schenn, they've already got their passports ready out. They got their bags packed because they know that they're getting dealt. And the only untouchables I would say are likely Quinn Hughes, and even Pettersson would be somebody, unless someone comes and knocks the shoes off of the Vancouver Canucks organization for Pettersson. But there are moves that could be had here in Vancouver, and it's going to be something to enjoy. They're going to be getting attacked by a lot of teams for those trades to happen, and there's a lot of pieces that can be moved to teams that can help. And speaking of teams that should go all in, that's the next point I'm going to get into. Teams that should be going all in at the deadline this year. First and foremost, yes, and people text me about Toronto all the time because everybody knows that Toronto Maple Leafs is a team I cheer for, but we know here on the Game Sports Show, we talk about all teams equally. All 32 teams, we talk about them. But yes, number one is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Number two is the Carolina Hurricanes. Number three is the Edmonton Oilers. Those are the three teams that have to go all in on getting some assets this year. The only thing that's going to be an issue is the salary cap side of things. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the people ask, hey, what do they need? How can they go all in? Get another defenseman, get another top six forward. Yeah, as easy as to say that. Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs can have pending trade partners that would work. Vancouver, Kyle Dubas was seen in Vancouver. Chicago, if you look at Max Domi, Jake McCabe, is that a package type deal? Does Toronto look at Brock Besser? I don't think so. Are they looking at Luke Schenn? Wouldn't that be something? And like I said, I'm not going to dive into the content and rumors about where this player is going where. Okay, but if a team's got to go all in, it is Toronto this year. Toronto this year, next year, got to go all in. You got to attract Matthews to stay longer, sign that long-term extension, or he might go to the desert and be playing at the Mullet Arena if Toronto doesn't get past the first round next couple of years. Joke aside, I believe Matthews will be Toronto loyal, but this is a team that can go all in this upcoming playoffs or upcoming deadline for the playoffs, and you got a tough road ahead in that playoffs. So you're playing Tampa or Boston in that first round. That's the way it's going. And it's not an easy first round matchup. And those two teams, both Boston and Tampa, are going to be making trades. They always have. Carolina is a very sexy team to watch. And I said this from the beginning of the season. I had Toronto and Carolina be in the conference final on the Eastern side. And I didn't want to say who I picked out of that. If that spoils the pick, it is what it is. But the Carolina Hurricanes are a very exciting team to watch. Pacioretty's done for the season. They can move out some cap pieces and make some room and bring in some assets. And I think Carolina is going to be a really big shocker in terms of going in a bit more to bring in some players. But they really don't need to change too much. They don't need to change too much. They may have to improve in some areas, ensure the health and net, but they've had some good stability in there. The Edmonton Oilers, Jack Campbell's been a disaster for you. Okay, it's been an issue for you overall. You need to ensure that Skinner and Campbell can maintain consistency and then focus on the D side of the puck. They should be all in on Jake Chychrun. That's a team that should be all over the Arizona Coyotes, or they should be looking at adding on that blue line as best as they can. And heck, if you could bring in a depth forward, why the heck not? Leafs, Canes, Oilers. Those teams got to go all in. And like I said last week, my surprise team is not the New York Rangers, because everyone thinks it's sexy. The Kane might go to the Rangers. Seattle Kraken, I have a feeling they're going to put their hands in the pot, the tentacles in there, and I think they're going to, I have a feeling. I could be wrong by the time this is uploaded, but Patrick Kane, it's got that feeling. Lastly, I want to get into the NHL All-Star Game issues before we get Bronson to come on into the show. The NHL All-Star Game. Okay. I don't have a lot of time to go for this, and I kind of wondered to myself and why I have this as a topic. And overall, I got to say flat out, the NHL All-Star Game, I am not watching that shit. I'm sorry. The NHL All-Star Game, the selection process, the whole enchilada of the NHL All-Star Game is an issue to me. How Willie Nylander doesn't get picked in there after Matthews gets injured is one thing, but I'm not going to be biased. Barkov's a great hockey player. He's one of the best two-way players, one of the top players in the league for a reason. But the NHL All-Star Game, it's just so not enjoyable. You think of all the skills, it could be cool. You bring all these guests to go in there, and it's just not the way it used to be. Maybe I'm old school with that, but I look back at the opening of the Air Canada Center back in 2000, and I think of that, how everyone tried. You had Al McInnes, Chris Pronger, you had all these guys just actually really trying on their drills and their skills competition and trying to win. And then the All-Star Game, it was hard-paced. Now, granted, the 3-on-3 hockey is exciting and has been really entertaining to watch, but I've always been a fan. If you're going to keep the All-Star Game, maybe you should consider changing the format and making it worth something. For the MLB, there's a lot of jokes that go around, but they throw the ball hard. They try to get hits because that's home field advantage in the World Series. That's what they pay for. But then you got owners in the National Hockey League that are going to be like, well, my player might get hurt if he goes too hard at the All-Star Game, which granted can happen. But the All-Star Game, it's either you scrap it or enhance it. That's where my vision is on it. And I say scrap it. I would rather than focus on making sure they can get back to the Olympics so we can see guys like Crosby and McDavid play together. Or we can see some of these great players play together before they age out. Because it seems like we're never going to see another Olympics with all the NHL in there. The NHL All-Star Game could be a good time for teams to take a week and a half off to look at another avenue of something for entertainment, or just take the week off for players, like a bye week, so teams can try to get their injuries and players can focus on seeing their families. Mental health is very important, right? Maybe it's time to think of the All-Star Game as, yes, it is a money grab. It attracts fans. You sell jerseys, but maybe it is time to consider completely scrapping it or enhancing it. And I'm a fan of scrapping it. I think it is not enjoyable. I think it's a waste of time to watch. I literally will not waste time to watch it. If it is on in my household, it's while I'm doing something, likely talking in front of this camera to you great listeners. But the NHL All-Star Game has got to go. And maybe it's not going to get rid of forever. It's just changing the format. I would be open to that. Like I said, scrap or enhance. I say scrap. But if someone says, "Hey, Dave, I'm someone who runs the All-Star Game. Hey, Dave, I'm going to take the All-Star Game and change it. I'm going to change it complete 360 and make you like it," I would bite. I'd be interested to see, because the little boy in me, which is the target market, is the kids. Let's not forget that the target market is the kids, and they like seeing the Dangles, they like seeing the Michigans, they like seeing all these moves. But you got our generation, if you're my age, in the 1990s era, the 80s, the 70s, that type of era, we want to see that hard shot. We want to see the intensity. You got to find that middle. But speaking of target, it's the kids that are going to make the money for National Hockey League. So that's why it isn't gone, but I hope they can open up on expanding it, enhancing it, as I said, or at the very least, if they can't do that, maybe scrap it and look at something else. It's just my thoughts, probably unfavored opinion, and it likely won't happen because it's making too much money. It won't go anywhere, but it's time to consider that. That's all I'm going to talk about in terms of hockey. I lied to the one only best producer around, Mike Tassone. I didn't say his name at the beginning, but everyone knows that Mike Tassone is the producer of the Game Sports Show podcast here, powered by the Game Entertainment Media. He's the man, he's the myth, he's a legend. He's behind the camera doing all the work for you to enjoy and make me look a little bit prettier and able to look at me more. So I'm sure he would want me to take a breath, because it is time to take a quick breath and bring in our guest here for this show, Bronson Kovacs. Take a few moments and let Bronson get settled in. Now, speaking of Bronson Kovacs, he's settled in now. He's chilling. He's ready to join yours truly, David McCaig. Let's bring him in. The one and only owner and operator, former professional hockey player, now men's league all-star, Bronson Kovacs, the owner of Zoli Kleaners. Bronson, my friend, how's it going?
It's going well, my friend. Good to be on the show. Really excited.
Definitely. Now, I know we're going to talk about Zoli Kleaners first, but I got to say something pinpointed first. The Sioux Thunderbird jersey right behind you. I see it on there. You are a Sioux Thunderbird alum. If anyone's wondering what that logo is, the Game Sports Show is based in Sioux, Ontario, for any listeners that are outside of here. But the Sioux Thunderbirds, T-Bot, that's a legendary junior hockey team, okay? And there's a lot of history. And Bronze, you won, I believe, with them, right? If I remember correctly.
Bringing up the Thunderbirds, it's a pretty funny story how my grandfather Zoltan Sr. actually started the Thunderbirds way back when it was still I think it was called the OHA. It was something else. He wanted a place for local players to be able to play, and he actually started it. Then my dad, he didn't play. He would play for the Grounds. My dad ended up coaching, and I ended up playing. So it was kind of three generations of Kovacs is suiting up or being involved with the Sioux Thunderbirds.
Well, I know your dad is a pretty known coach too. Obviously, everyone knows that. And yourself, you've grown up in the ways of hockey. And we're going to talk hockey shortly, but I want to talk Zoli's Kleaners first. Okay, Zoli's Kleaners with a K. It's not Cleaners with a C. It's much cooler with a K, just so everybody knows. And in Sault Ste. Marie, it's not a secret. Okay, it's known. You've been on podcasts in town or broadcasts, whatever, and you've had shares. You've had articles. It's known, and deservingly so. You've had a post today about having a certificate with your technician side of things. I want you to talk about it. We'll go back and forth with it, but how'd this all start? What is it? Give the listeners a little taste of what Zoli's Kleaners is.
Well, Zoli's Kleaners we're basically an ozone cleaning company. So, long story short, with ozone, it's highly charged oxygen that basically takes the smell and the odors and the bacteria out of everyday household things. So for me, it's growing up playing hockey, looking back now, I feel terrible for my mom and basically all mothers that grew up with hockey players that took over their laundry rooms or their basements. Because I know you were probably in a similar spot. You play the game, pack up your gear, bring it right downstairs, hang it up. All of a sudden, your entire house just reeks.
Yeah.
It basically took me 32 years that you can kind of see in the background. I built my own hockey stall. It took me 32 years for me to come back to the Sioux and have my own house, to smell this gear and go, holy, something's got to be done. So this was definitely something I was doing some research on, looking into, and it was offered in Sault Ste. Marie, but it wasn't as advertised. It wasn't advertised a whole lot. So Mark Ebert, I actually bought my machine off him. He's had this machine for several years now. He just has had so many other things on the go that he hasn't really advertised it. So when I approached him last summer, it was more of a professional courteism.
Yeah, like that works.
I basically just wanted to reach out and say, I've known Mark for years, and say, Mark, I'm looking to get into this ozone business. Want to let you know, want to ask you a couple of questions, how they're to deal with. Long story short, I go, well, is yours for sale? We ended up agreeing on a price, gave me a great deal on it. And next thing you know, Zoli's Kleaners was born.
See, you bring up a very funny topic where you bring it downstairs in the basement, you hang it up, and it just reeks. And kudos to the mothers and fathers, like you said, putting up with that stench in their house. And my parents are very particular about cleanliness, and I can just imagine they used to give me shit when they used to be like, go put your gear back in the bag. And now I know why, because it stunk so much, or we'd wash it in the washing machine or whatever. But truly clean it the way that you clean it is the more effective and beneficial way for the equipment overall too. And it's really picked up, obviously, in town, and rightfully so. And I hope it just continues to go even outside the Sioux for you. But it's a product that it's a niche market in town and needs to be focused more because the bacteria it causes issues. You're gonna have jog itch,
Yeah, you
and
got
if it
the
wasn't
MRSA,
for
any kind of those fleshy diseases. You've seen it. I've been trying to promote. You don't want to promote that stuff, but you want to bring it to light. So there's been instances. I believe Joe Thornton, after one of his surgery, he had I think it was knee surgery, had some kind of incision on his knee. He came back. He ended up getting a bacteria infection. Obviously, you're getting that from your equipment. So this has been something. I believe maybe Evander Kane had something similar. I've been trying to research and bring to light some of these kind of things that a lot of the general public doesn't know about. Yeah. So it's definitely something that this service is offered in bigger cities. This service is offered for professional sports teams. So I think pretty much every team in the NHL has something similar to this. The Greyhounds actually use something similar to this. So it is out there, but it was only for a select few people. So it wasn't available to that general public. So that was me kind of saying, you know what? There's a ton of fucking hockey players at Sault Ste. Marie. And there's a ton of mothers, fathers, guardians, whoever it may be, that could greatly benefit from this. So my kind of thing was, I know how expensive hockey is. I want to bring this product, I want to bring this service to the public, but I want to make it affordable. People are spending so much money on hockey, on their mortgages, on food, on everything. I want to be known as more of a need rather than that luxury.
That's that's a very good point that you bring up. Outside of this, I have a full-time work that I do that involves and talk about inflation in town and living standards in Ontario and in Sault Ste. Marie. And I know it's a sports podcast, but we're getting to the point here. It's the whole price of everything's got up. You go buy lettuce, the hockey you bring up is so expensive. Like, it's more expensive than when we played. I think it is, if I remember correctly. I don't remember it being like money that it is now, and it's just changed the world of sports. Someone was telling me the other day that I made a joke, said, hey, if my son or daughter doesn't want to, and I'm having kids, doesn't want to play hockey, I won't be mad. I'll put them in guitar or piano. And someone told me, hey, that's more expensive than hockey is now. It's everything is so expensive. So something that's cost effective is very important, right? Because people are like, well, this guy's always looking for a deal. It's not that they're just looking for a deal. It's just maybe that they can't afford what someone else is putting out there. And you're the great example. Yeah, the Hounds have something here in the Soo, and people don't know who the Greyhounds are. They're an OHL team here in the Soo called the Soo Greyhounds. They have their own thing that's for their team. They don't offer that out to the public, right? You have an opportunity to get to have people in town connect with you to make sure that their gear is properly cleaned and at affordable prices.
Yeah. So obviously, like we were talking before, the hockey market is the niche for me. I've been around it for years. That's all I knew. It's actually gained a lot of traction since then. I believe it or not, I had a buddy come by with his mother had all these old spools of yarn, and he goes, they smell like smoke. Can you throw them in? So I've got about 50 or 60 spools of yarn sitting in there that I just cleaned. So that's been a first. But I've had obviously the hockey equipment, goalie stuff. I've had duvets, I've had pillow covers, I've had jackets, I've had Diesel there. Dave Cornell came over with about 5 or 6 pairs of shoes that just reeked to.
Oh God!
And then we threw them in for 2 or 3 rounds. So it started out as hockey equipment. Now it's definitely getting a lot bigger. I bought some portable machines. I'm looking at talking with Property One. I'm going to see the high school football coaches to see if we can work something out for them. So it's definitely got some traction, and it's just something. Something that it's an exciting experience. It's an exciting opportunity for me to be able to bring this to Sault Ste. Marie and kind of bring it to the forefront.
Definitely. Now, before we get into some hockey talk about your playing days, where can someone look up Zoli's Kleaners? Where can they contact you?
So right now we're on Instagram and Facebook. Our Instagram handle is @zolis.cleaners, and our Facebook is just Zoli's Kleaners. So that's those are the only 2 social media pages we have right now. Working on a website, and we've been starting to pump out a little bit more content with just kind of giving our followers an idea of things other than hockey equipment, because people think, okay, they do hockey equipment, but there's so many other things. You think about kids' toys, you think about just a basement smell, cooking smells. interiors of cars. There's just a laundry list of things that we can do that this machine is capable of, or my portable machines are capable of. So whether it's bringing stuff here or me going on site somewhere else, there's all kinds of opportunities. So I just if people have any questions, reach out, and I'll give you some answers. If I don't have the answers, I'll figure those out, or I'll find somebody that knows the answers, and I'll forward you the information.
Definitely reach out for that for sure. I may have to come and bring some of my gear. I tell you, I try to clean it. I still don't think I do a good job cleaning it. I'm gonna have to come use give you my gear, But I want to dive into hockey. And by the way, great hats. Okay, I know that's a great hat. Maybe some people should look at buying some of those hats from you too. Yeah. But your playing days. Okay, we're gonna dive into talking about how you played. You played overseas. You played obviously junior hockey. Your roots are here in Sault Ste. Marie. You had some Southern Ontario experience in junior. Then you go to Division 3, I believe, is where you played. Then from Division 3, you go over to Eastern Europe.
Central Eastern Europe.
Yeah. And I was looking at some of the team names. I'm not going to try because if I try, I might say other words. I might get kicked off the channel. I don't know what's going on. So I'm not going to go through the teams. And butchering names is something I'm known for a little bit. I called the San Diego Gulls the Gills one time, and it was on a live stream. So it didn't go the greatest there. But you played 245 approximate games outside of playoff games overseas. Yeah. And you had some good times over there. I believe you were a captain the one time. I just want you to get into the experiences overseas. You probably got stories like we were saying on the phone a week or so back, just sitting on the bus for 12 hours playing euchre or Uno and all that with the boys.
Yeah. So it was a pretty surreal experience just from how I first kind of heard about it. I was telling you about it. I was actually talking to Mike about it back at that Christmas function we were at. It all started when it was my overage year when I was playing for the Huntsville Otters. We were playing the Newmarket Hurricanes, and it was one of those like Sportsnet webcast broadcasts that I thought was the greatest thing of all time. I was like, oh, people want to watch me play hockey. This is awesome. Mind you, there's probably like 15 people viewing it. Long story short, after the game, coach comes in and goes, "Hey, Bronson, somebody wants to come talk to you." Okay, it's got to be maybe Hobart came to watch me. Maybe at a school, it was something with something at the next level. So I was pretty excited. I go out and there's a guy with a Hockey Canada jersey or Hockey Canada jacket. I'm going, well, this has to be some kind of mistake. We start getting to talk, and he's going, yeah, I know a gentleman overseas in Hungary. I noticed your last name's Kovacs. You must have Hungarian lineage. I want to put you in contact with him. So what Hungary was doing was they were doing what basically Italy did for the Olympics a couple years ago, where they almost went to Toronto and tried to find every Italian Canadian, got them their passports so they could build a program. So yeah. Hungary was doing something similar to that. So I said, at that point I was like, professional hockey, that's incredible. I never thought this would be a possibility. So yeah, at that point I really didn't know where Hungary was on a map. I didn't know what the country was like. Yeah. So I kind of brushed it off for a little bit. I didn't think anything of it. And then the next week or so, I get a Facebook message from Zoli Kleaners, and he gave me this spiel in my inbox going, "Hey, my name is Zoli Kleaners. I'm the head of the Hungarian Ice Hockey or Secretary General, Hungarian Ice Hockey Federation." He's giving me the spiel of your salary, and you can play for the national team. We'll get you a passport. I'm sitting there like, this is incredible. Like, it's too good to be true. It's got to be too good to be true. It's got to be somebody that's like I'm getting catfished. Is yeah, for sure. On. So next thing, and just by the name Zoli Kovacs, I'm going, that you don't see that name very often. Like these guys, somebody's fucking with me. Somebody's screwing with me here. So thankfully, my dad actually reached out. He reached out to Hartsey. Hartsey called somebody from Hockey Canada, going, "Who's this Zoli Kovacs guy?" And they said, like, he's a big name over there. He's really helped out Hungarian hockey over the years. So this was all legit. Next thing I know, I gave him a call, and I'm going, "Listen, I got to get my schooling done." I had a conversation with my parents, going, let me get the college education, because that's 10 years ago. That's what you had to do. You had to go get a certificate and pay $200,000 before you can get a real job. So I said, yeah, okay, you know what? I'll fall in line, go to college for 4 years, have a great time. And then graduated May 2015. July 2015. Me and my dad hopped on a plane and headed off to Europe. So he convinced my mom that he had to bring me just in case I got lost along the way, just in case I didn't know what was going on over there. So me and him had I think a week and a half vacation over there together, and he got me all settled in, and that's kind of where it all started.
You know what? See, the part where you said Zoli Kleaners, I wouldn't have read it. I honestly think I would have looked at it and been like,
yeah, you think it was spam.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's not a very large Hungarian population, so you don't really, you see the Italians, the Irish, the Sioux is only made up of so many different heritages, lineages or cultures. So it's the Italians kind of dominate. So I never met anybody else from Hungary, but I guess like the Kovacs and like Zoltan is basically like a Mike Smith here. So it's a very common name. So I was playing on teams where there's another Kovacs on the team, and everybody back home is going, "Oh, you're playing with your cousin, or you're playing with your uncle, or you're playing with one of these guys."
No, it's just a common name.
It's just a common. It's a common name over there. So that was definitely a culture shock for me.
So how about the play? Now, we've had like, I know you're someone who's listened to the special edition shows. We've had some European guys
a couple ex-teammates
of yours. I believe was one Cash. Did you play with Cash?
Yeah.
Play with Cash, and was it Bondarchuk? I don't know if you played with Bondarchuk.
No, just St. Pierre.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, Martin St. Pierre. Yeah, there you go. That's right. So there's a couple of guys we had, and we always talk about the difference between the North American and the European game. Okay, so there is a difference. You can tell in the game. It's faster. I feel the speed is there in Europe. The body contact, well, you don't see body contact anymore in Canada. It's down the tubes. But it's a different style of game that you had to learn going over there. And you probably playing college got you groomed to be able to learn a little bit, because the college level is a fast game too, right? It's but what was the shock like playing in that game and in the European game, from jumping from North America right to Europe? Besides just getting there and learning a new language, or like learning that lifestyle, you have to jump on the ice and just learn a new game in a way too.
One of the biggest things is when I first got there, Hungarian hockey was still developing. They were still trying to find their identity.
Yeah.
And a lot of their hockey, they kind of modeled after the USSR and Russia, because when they had a pretty tough history. If you kind of go, I'm not a history buff by any means, but if you kind of go back in the history books and see, okay, they were occupied by Germany, they were occupied by the Russians, they were behind the Iron Curtain. So they kind of formed a lot of their systems, a lot of their style after that kind of USSR with the on-ice training, the off-ice training. So it was definitely a different experience for me. So my first year I was over there, I had a Russian coach by the name of Evgeny Muhin. And there was a mutual dislike, I guess, on both sides. I believe he was part of the team. I don't know if you remember when Canada played Russia and there was that punch out where they had to, at the World Juniors, where they had to turn the lights off.
Yeah, that was the 80s, I believe, right? That happened in the 80s. That happened. Yeah.
He either played on that team the year before or the year after during it. And needless to say, he did not like Canadians. Rightfully so. If he was involved in that, and they had to turn the lights off, and he's probably getting his face mushed in by Theo Fleury or someone. So, I can't really blame him, but it was definitely it was the first time in my life that it was tough. Just the communication. So my first year, like you got to think when you're playing your minor hockey, when you're playing college, it's all English.
Yeah.
When I got over there, I couldn't speak a lick of Hungarian. I didn't know yes, no. I didn't know anything. I was
just shaking your head or nodding your head.
Yeah, but you got to think hockey is a very universal sport where you don't really need. I kind of thought, oh, you know what? I could figure out what's hockey. But just over that first year, it was, when you're sitting around a campfire and you're playing that telephone game.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. So
good
example. I'm sitting there. I go on. I think I have a good shift. Maybe I make a hit. I do something.
Yeah.
I come off the bench. Mind you, this Russian coach didn't speak a lick of Hungarian either. He only spoke Russian.
Oh,
So it would basically it would get translated down from Russian to Hungarian. It was the head coach to the assistant coach who spoke Hungarian and Russian. Then the assistant coach would tell somebody that spoke Hungarian and English. And by that time, it was coming to me, and I was putting my foot over the boards going out again. So for the whole year, I got this guy yelling at me in Russian. I'm going, either he's saying "great job" or probably something I can't say on this podcast.
You fucking suck. No.
So that you don't realize how much how valuable communication is until you get put in that position.
Yeah.
And that was I'm not gonna lie, that was a very, for my first year pro, it was a successful year, but it was very hard. It was a very hard year not being able to communicate with your coach, with your teammates. I mean, you got the small talk in, but aside from, hey, what'd you do last night? Oh, I played Xbox. Or I do this. It was very primitive communications. So that was definitely a long year. The town I played in, there wasn't a lot of English speakers. So it was getting to the point at the end of the year where I was so excited to come home and just talk to people and have like an intellectual conversation. So when I first got home, it was we'd go to a bar, we'd go for food, and I would almost hear people speak English, and you could just kind of see me turning my head and just almost staring at these people. And it's because I hadn't heard English and so like real English in so long.
Because you were so separated from it where you were.
When you go through that, that was definitely a tough first year. The coaching didn't really help out. The team was figuring out a couple things, but it was a very unique departure from my end and from how things ended over there. But you know what? I ended up finding a new team. I think within 24 to 48 hours, I was having a meeting with a team when my current team was actually playing. So I ended up in a really good spot, and I ended up in Budapest the next year.
See, and everything aligned that way and was better for you. And eventually, you're looking at it. And a couple more things before we let you go, Bronson. You end up wearing the C when you're down there. Okay, so now you go from an experience where you don't know a lick of the language, and now you're a captain of a team in Europe, and you're a Canadian. Okay, and that's a big honor in itself. So the 2 points I'd like to get into is that captaincy that year as being the captain, how that felt for you. And then the second part that I'll get into is I want to give you the floor on the best or funniest story that you can share on this podcast. And it doesn't matter if it's R-rated, you can have the floor with it. Okay. But that captaincy, when I saw that, that's pretty big honor to have, especially being international.
So the captaincy, that was definitely one of the biggest honors I had over there. It was, for me, when I went to college, I studied sociology and anthropology. Anthropology, basically studying different cultures and how to become part of that culture without being looked at as an outsider. So that was, when I went over there, they got me a passport. They basically called me Kovacs Zoli. That was my name over there. So cool. I actually worked pretty hard over the years. I ended up getting a tutor. My team in Budapest got me a tutor. I was learning the language. I wish I would have done a little bit better, but I learned some broken Hungarian. In the 6 years, I had enough to carry these smaller conversations and to live day to day. And I was really proud that I was able to accomplish that. And that was the cherry on top was being named captain that last my second year in Dunaújváros, and that was definitely an honor. It just, for me, it was my teammates and the coaching staff accepting me as Kovacs Zoli, the Hungarian, not Bronson Kovacs, the Canadian. So that part was really, really special for me. Looking at some of the jerseys now at Debrecen, I had an A on my jersey for a little, or my second time around at Debrecen, I had the A on my jersey. My first year in Deb, I think I was an assistant captain, so it wasn't. I've been part of the leadership group a lot from a young age, from my time with the Thunderbirds to even before that in the North
Stars.
So it was something I've always kind of liked taking that leadership role. I like being vocal. I like kind of leading by example. So that was nothing new to me. but to get that honor to be able to lead a professional hockey team overseas as somewhat of a foreign player it was just pretty surreal that those guys kind of saw me as a leader, even though I wasn't a naturally born Hungarian.
Yeah, I see. That's an honor. I like the way you brought out, say they brought you up as a Hungarian. They didn't think of you as a Canadian. I like that. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Now, like I was saying, the final play to end up in a bang with this, we were talking about this on the phone. You said that you have some stories. Yeah. I've pumped you up that I think you can share a lot of your stories to the world. But I want to give you the floor on a story that you'd like to share to the Game Sports Show listeners on a funny meme or funny story yourself about someone else. Floor is yours for that.
Okay. Well, we could be here for hours. There could be PG-13. There could be R-rated. There's
14A or R. You can go that level, man. I'm good with that.
Fight scenes. There's enough for a book, I think. But one of the ones that it was actually just an incredible experience for me. This would have been. I'm looking at the jersey now. This would have been my second year in Mott's Budapest. So my third year overseas. And we were playing for a team called Mott's Budapest. And I go into the office, and one of our office ladies, Emma, I go see her every morning. I'd have a coffee, say hello, and I was her little monkey. And we'd be chatting, and she goes, I need you to do. She had very good English. She was somebody I relied on heavily. So I go see her, and she goes, we need a couple of guys to go on a game show. Okay, well, I'm in. Sign me up.
Yeah.
There was, I want to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 or 6 of us that we all say, hey, you got to be at the TV2. I think it was TV2, the TV studio at 7:00. So me and one of the other Canadians, Wes Cunningham, actually a buddy that I still keep in touch with. He's from Chatham. So me and him jump in the car, and there's 2 or 3 other Hungarians that we all go to this place. And we're on this TV show, and it's called Opera Magyad. And it's this game show they have in Hungary where people watch on TV, and you can grab your phone and you can kind of vote in. So the premise of this show is they pose these questions. To give you an example, before we were part of the show, the question was, how long should women have after giving birth before they have to go back to work? And they have a panel discussion of, there's some celebrities in this panel. They have discussions. Oh, they should go back right away. They never have to work again. They get 2 years. They get 5 years. And they'll discuss it. And then people will vote at home. And then boom, that's okay. That on to the next one. So needless to say, we're
like a hoot in a way.
Yeah. So we're sitting back. These doors open up, and there's 5 or 6 of us, and we're in hockey gear from our pants down, took our skate blades out, gloves, stick, naked, shirtless. And we walk, and these doors open up, and the smoke goes, and we walk down these glass stairs in skates, and everybody's going wild, and we're like, it's a live TV set. I'm kind of in shape and kind of not in shape. I'm walking down. The guys are doing push-ups before. We got our makeup done. I'm going, what is this? What did I sign up for? Mind you, this is all in Hungarian. So me and Wes are sitting there looking at each other like, no idea what's going on. So I guess the question for them is, do you prefer your men with a shaved chest, with a hairy chest, with a trimmed chest? So I'm sitting there, and I look like a grizzly bear. You got Wes, who doesn't have a hair on his body. You got some of these 19-year-olds that are like quaffing themselves, and well, there's the one gymnast or figure skater on the panel, and she's flirting with everybody and just having, look at these guys, just having a great time. Like I said, I'm half naked on a Hungarian TV show, no clue what's going on. All of a sudden, everybody votes in, and everybody starts celebrating. I look over to the host. I go, "What happened? Like, who do they like? The hairy women? Do they like the hairy men? Do they, the shaved one?" She goes, "They like you. They like you." So I'm on cloud 9, going, "This is fun. Let's go celebrate."
You're like, yeah.
next thing we know, I'm going upstairs, and we get back in our dressing room. I look at my phone; it's blowing up with all these people going. I'm sitting here with my parents. Why are you naked on my TV? Every once in a while, it's. I think it's still on Facebook somewhere on Upper Mudyard, and every once in a while, I'll look back on it and go, this doesn't happen in North America.
Producer Mike Tassone might have to find that clip and put it at the end of the segment to show people that clip.
It was one of the funniest experiences of my life, but that's one of awesome. About a million different situations I found myself in over there. Some good, some bad, some story worthy, some can only be told in a booth at a bar where nobody else can hear you.
Or in the garage there beside the cleaner when you're getting your gear cleaned. Yeah. See, did you at least on the way out give them a little dance or a little pose on the way out, or you just get out of there?
A little shimmy shake. I think I was just on cloud nine going, they like their man Harry. I got a chance.
Oh, that's good. See, that's good. That story, like you said, we can write a book. You could write a book, stories, but that one's good. I might have to find a way to get that clip into the show because I need to find that now. I never knew that. Not that I want to look at Bronson naked. I want to clarify that with the listeners. Okay, I'm sure if I asked him to do the pose, he might, but I'm not doing that. Game Sports Show listeners, there's none of that happening. But Bronze, that's a good tale, my man. I like that. That's good. So now we talked. I'm going to get to the end here. Always it's fun. We went a little bit extra here with you, and I want to make sure that we talked everything with your business, everything you did in hockey. You're giving, in a way, your business is giving back to the community on a sport that gave you so much, right? And it's a sport that's still popular in town, despite how people, and this is Sault Ste. Marie comment based only. Anyone outside the Soo can kind of mute this, but in the Soo, there's a lot of criticism on how the hockey development is in town. Okay, so the Soo though is a very popular and known hockey town. We've pride ourselves in hockey. And speaking of mine and Bronson's generation, yeah, there was a lot of championships and a lot of winning in that age group, and it's maybe not as happening as much now, but I think that's because the game has grown to a little bit elsewhere. Let's give credit with that. But your product is giving back to the community. And there's a lot of people that work in the hockey community in so many different ways. So it's great that you're doing that. And I want to remind listeners and viewers to check out Zoli Kleaners on Facebook, Instagram. You can reach out to Bronson directly or me. I'll be the middle person if you want, and I'll send you right to Bronson. So Bronson, I want to say thanks for taking the time, man, for coming on the Game Sports Show. I know you've listened to the show, and I'm happy to have you here as a guest, and we'll have you again sometime soon.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to it. Give me a little bit of heads up, and I'll dig up a couple more good ones for the listeners.
Well, maybe until the podcast gets going, maybe we can have a little Zoli's Kleaners or something segment mixed in on the show. Maybe that's something we have to add on down the road. But
I'm ready to go anytime I get the call.
Awesome, and you also are next door to my sister, so I'll have to come over there with my hockey gear and have a drink with you in your garage there and talk some more tales.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks again, Bronson, for coming on. We're going to take a quick moment here. We'll let Bronson get off, and we're going to get into the last and final point of the show. I want to say thank you again to Bronson Kovacs for taking the time out of his busy schedule to join us here on the Game Sports Show podcast. Bronson for sure has tales for days, and we'll make sure to get Bronson to come on once in a while to share those stories with you as well. Let's just talk some hockey. The guy's got knowledge, and the guy's got some cleaning expertise as well. So if you got to get that gear, easy for me to say, cleaned up, get in touch with Bronson Kovacs. Now, we're getting to the final part of the show, and it's always my least favorite. Even though the content's always great and fun to talk about, I don't like concluding the show. It's always so much fun to talk with you, the viewers, the listeners of the Game Sports Show. And for taking the time to listen to me, make sure you have subscribed and liked all the platforms of the Game Sports Show and also TGM. But to go out with a bang with this topic I'm going to call it the final thoughts. And I'm going to start incorporating final thoughts into my final topic. It just makes sense, right? Final segment, final topic, may as well be final thoughts. And it's going to be football related. All right. And it makes sense because this week we don't have it In the Pocket podcast. In the Pocket is a podcast that's been around for over 6 years for the Game Sports Show. It's one of our longest running podcasts next to hockey. And we have 7 other shows on the Game Sports Show platform. Then we have the TGM Network, and we're under the sports category in TGM. There's just so much content you can enjoy, but we're talking football right now. And the In the Pocket segment will be off this week because we have the Pro Bowl. And we had a very interesting question come in terms of what's better between the NHL All-Star Game and the Pro Bowl. Now, I'll get to that last. In terms of that, answering that question, I want to save that for last because I'm not going to give too much rationale with it. But football itself, the AFC NFC Championship weekend that just passed. We have the Super Bowl coming up. And like I said, the In the Pocket podcast is on a week off, so we don't have any football that we're talking about here on the Game Sports Show, but I'm sure you'll have lots of content to dive into. And then, of course, we will have a big Super Bowl preview show coming up, as well as all the news you can check on the Game Sports Show content. But I want to make sure I dive into football because of that. And the games this weekend, I did predict the Eagles to beat the Niners. That was one game to predict. The big part of it was I just feel like Philadelphia at home, tough place to play. But the Niners, my goodness, not able to stay healthy in the quarterback position in any which way. Injuries. Is that an excuse to use? You know what? The game obviously would have been a little closer, but I truly don't think the Niners would have beat the Eagles. I don't think they're as good as the Eagles. I really don't. I am sorry. Even McCaffrey, big ad this year. It just wasn't their time to win. If seeing them in the game, and if they had Tom Brady there. Well, maybe too soon to talk about Tom Brady, but I'm sure he's already on the phone with the 49ers because they might need some more depth in that quarterback position. Because when you're down to your 4th string quarterback and then you put in your injured quarterback to start off the game, you're not going to have a recipe for success. Bosa's working his ass off on the D side of the ball. The Niners just set up for a disaster as soon as kickoff occurred in that game in Philadelphia. And people got to stop putting jerseys on the Rocky Monument. Listen, I'm a big Rocky fan. And that statue is legendary. One, don't put any jersey on there. Okay, I wouldn't even say put anything Toronto related on that statue. You leave that statue alone. It has been through enough. It had to move from the top to the bottom. There was a dispute. And every team that puts a jersey on there, it's like that definition, okay, that they talk about when you repeatedly do stuff over again. Okay, it's like insanity. That's what that is. Don't be putting your jersey on top of that the Rocky Balboa Monument, okay, in Philadelphia. Leave that the way it is because you're going to be cursing yourself right from the start. The Eagles came out that game. The better team won. The team that would have won anyways. Sorry to say it, Niners and Niners fans. Might have been a different turnout, more exciting game, but the Eagles, the fate. Eagles fly, and they're flying the way of the Super Bowl, rightfully so, because they won in all areas of that game. And yes, big part of it, again, is because the injuries on the QB side of the Niners. Let's talk Chiefs-Bengals briefly before we wrap up the show. Again, we're here on the final thoughts. Last topic of the Game Sports Show podcast, episode 2, powered by the Game Entertainment Media. I'm David McCaig. This is, of course, produced by the one, only man, the myth, the legend, Mike Tassone. That game between the Bengals and Chiefs, a little bit underwhelming for me, but still very entertaining. And it went down right to the end. The Kansas had to hold them off. I predicted this game to be 42-38 Bengals. I was wrong. The high-powered offense wasn't there. Mahomes playing on one foot, basically, still injured. The guy's a battler. Okay, and don't forget, he almost played baseball. Okay, good thing he chose football. You know, there was some baseball history there with the Patrick Mahomes. You can look that up. Very interesting. But he chose the world of football, and good thing that he did. The guy's already a Super Bowl champion. He's likely going to be the MVP this year, and he's going back to Super Bowl to win, hopefully, this time around. The last time he was there, 3rd time in 4 years he's been there, he lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that is to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. So I'm sure there's a little bit of redemption there that's needed. But what's the cool storyline about that game between the Bengals and the Chiefs is that defense actually showed up in the game, but there was a lot of times that I felt the Joe Burrow wasn't Joe Burrow in that game. Okay. Like, you can look at the Bengals and Chiefs, and you can see overall that the game was like really contained. Okay, really contained. The first quarter only had 3 points. I believe it was a field goal by the Chiefs. Then the second quarter started picking up a little bit. The 10 by the Chiefs and then 6 by the Bengals. Remember correctly, it was 13-6 going into half. And then third quarter came. They exchanged touchdowns. And then the fourth quarter, the Bengals made a late run. The Chiefs had a field goal in there. And ultimately, that's what led to the final. But 2 interceptions for Joe Burrow in that football game. Patrick Mahomes, 0. There is a point. Turning the football over. Doesn't matter if you turn over the game or what came out of points or those interceptions. What matters is that who had possession more in the game, the possession of the game more at the key opportune times that led to the other points in the football game. And true football players will know that each play, each snap counts. And those interceptions are something to really focus on in that game. Joe Burrow threw under 300 yards. Patrick Mahomes threw over 2 and he threw 2 touchdowns. What hurt ankle does he have? I don't know what he has in terms of hurt, but Joe Burrow running the football. I really feel that Joe Burrow in this game, and it's funny because it was Kelsey that said that at the post-game reaction, Burrow had my ass. He was yelling to Patrick Mahomes. And while Mahomes was getting interviewed, and there's a lot of speculation that, you know what, this is Joe Burrow's chance for redemption this year. He's going to make the Super Bowl and win it this year. Look, the Bengals are going to be back. They're going to be a Super Bowl team. They're going to win the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow there. I'm going to flat out say it. All you Cincinnati fans can get excited, but you're not happy right now. The key thing of this is that the Kansas City Chiefs were able to contain, and they must have watched some previous tapes. They must have looked at different things to really see what can really make the Bengals stand out and have the football turned over, but also contain them without having to get a lot of points, because Burrow can throw the football, he can run with the football, but Mahomes can do the same thing. But Mahomes is someone who is injured currently, right? And doesn't look like he has any issues with that. But it's going to be amazing to see what he does this week with the week off going into the Super Bowl. Overall, the Bengals-Chiefs game, underwhelming, but still exciting, if that makes sense. I expected more, but it was still a game that had you at the end of your couch, end of your edge of your seat, or if you were listening with your, I don't know how to say edge of your ears, that's not a thing, but they had you excited for the ending and final results. And there was some dispute on the Bengals side. Players were again mad at each other, and they could have won this game, Cincinnati. They shot themselves in the foot in a lot of circumstances, but the Chiefs found a way to win, and good teams find ways to win. And the big key points of that game that caused the Bengals to lose, I feel, are those interceptions and just not capitalizing. And the Chiefs being really strong on the defensive side of the football, and Mahomes throwing the ball when needed and being smart given that he is injured. He was able to adapt to the game, and that's what the good players do. And he's just something to watch. Now he has a week off because of the Pro Bowl. Then he's going to play on the 12th. And at the Super Bowl, he's probably going to be more than ready, almost at 100% likely by then, I'm sure. But he is going against a very, very confident Eagles team. And we're going to get into the Super Bowl preview show for In the Pocket later. And to spoil my prediction, because I don't want to make it wait, I do believe the Chiefs are going to beat the Eagles in that game. It is not going to be as high scoring people think. 28-17-21. I got to give you a score. So 28-21 will be my prediction in the Super Bowl. I may change that by the Super Bowl preview show, but Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, this seems like this is the team to do it. He has an MVP caliber season, and it seems like getting that trophy to get back and have that redemption for the year that he lost to Brady, it's time. But Philadelphia, do not count them out. Do not count out Hurts. Do not count out the Philadelphia Eagles. They are so exciting to watch, are those Eagles, and they're going to not go down without a fight. But if Mahomes is healthy, he has a weapon in Kelsey. You can't count out the Chiefs in that. Final thought with that, Kelsey and Kelsey against each other, the Kelsey brothers, you got to love that. The first time the brothers are against each other in a Super Bowl, and the first time ever in the NFL that brothers are against each other in the Super Bowl in its existence. That is amazing. And very big parts of their team are the Kelsey brothers. Kelsey, obviously, I feel has a little bit of that extra edge with the being Mahomes' main weapon, but the Kelsey having the brothers going against each other, you have the mother uploading pictures of a half Chiefs, half Eagles jersey. You got to love those storylines. It makes for great football. And you got to know that they're going to have a little friendly family wager there. And someone's going to leave heartbroken, though. And I think it's going to be the Kelsey that dons the green. The one that dons the red, orange, white might be the one having supremacy, lifting the trophy, the Lombardi trophy with Patrick Mahomes at the end of it. But the key parts of the Eagles to be success in this game is contain Mahomes in the air and attack him and try to get through that O-line of Kansas City. And then on the offensive side, be smart running the football and throw the short plays at the opportune time. For the Chiefs to be successful, it's containing that confident offense in the running game of Jalen Hurts. On the defensive side of the football, on the offensive side of the football, my apologies, it is throwing the football and utilizing Kelsey, getting him open as best as can so you can power down the field, and then you can look at a running or short throw game within the 30 yards down to the red zone. I think that's where the Chiefs will be successful, is utilizing their weapons on the offensive side as they get down the field, but then also containing not just a short throw, but utilizing all receivers, but using Kelsey to get the power down into the field to start using the weapons that they have on the sides. But like I said, Chiefs over the Eagles, 28-21. My prediction, you'll have to wait for the Super Bowl preview show for maybe any changes or any further predictions from the Game Sports Show staff. Those are my final thoughts, and that is a lot for final thoughts. I don't have a watch on. I look at my invisible watch and look at the time here on the studio. It's been Mike Tassone doing a fantastic job on the other end, the man, the myth, the legend, the one only Mike Tassone, producer of the Game Sports Show podcast. This has been the Game Sports Show podcast, episode 2, powered by the Game Entertainment Media. This edition sponsored by the Sport Displays and by Flawless Roofing. And it's been hosted by yours truly, David McCaig Jr. We are based in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. For anybody outside the Sioux, people that know know the Game Sports in Sioux, great. For those who tune in outside the Sault Ste. Marie, we hope that you're having a safe time and you're enjoying the podcast in the comfort of your home. But if you want to hear more content, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe for more content of the Game Sports Show, the Game Sports Show special editions, or upcoming editions of the Game Sports Show in general, or even overall with TGEM and the Game Entertainment and Media. I want to say thanks again to Bronson Kovacs for taking the time out of his day to come talk Zoli Kleaners and his time playing in Europe. And again, if this wouldn't be possible for you, the listeners, for this Game Sports Show that's been running for almost 7 years, January 2024, which is, I guess this actually is the 7th year. My goodness, January 2016. I don't know math, I guess. For 7 years that this show has been running, it is because of you. The great fans have been tuning in with us and have been with us from the beginning. And those new ones that are supporting us, we appreciate it. And if you want to provide any questions, any feedback, make sure that you comment below. And speaking of that feedback, I didn't forget that question. It'll be the perfect thing to lead to the conclusion. What's better, the Pro Bowl or the NHL All-Star Game? Listen, I will answer that question for you. The NHL All-Star Game is better than the Pro Bowl. And you know what I think about the NHL All-Star Game. So what does that tell you about the Pro Bowl? Am I watching the Pro Bowl this weekend? Absolutely not. Scrap that nonsense too. NHL All-Star Game still over the Pro Bowl. I may have got some people mad. Tell me if you are mad below. I'm excited to hear it. We will be back next week for episode 3 of the Game Sports Show podcast. We will have Mike Fabro come on. You can check him out on his hockey player or his fantasy YouTube channel. We'll get into that. A lot of subscribers and followers here for Mike Fabro. It's going to be great having Mike on. And we're going to be talking more sports here on the Game Sports Show podcast. And there may be another guest that comes on if we're able to chime that in. Any uploads coming up for the Game Sports Show, as I mentioned, In the Pocket is off. We do plan that there is a planned upload for Top Shelf this week. And we are nearing our next special edition upload, which will be with John Morasti, one of the gyms on Shoresy. So make sure you keep an eye on all that content. But just keep an eye in general for the Game Sports Show uploads. There's always a lot to enjoy. Again, thank you to Mike